gratitude,
Thank you for joining Chats Along the Path
cleaning,
with discussions about the 7
nature,
transformative practices of the 7-Way
walking,
Path. I'm Christian of Standing Stones
journaling,
Healing, inviting you to heal,
ritual,
grow, and transform with the 7-Way Path.
silence,
Thank you for walking the
gratitude,
path, and best wishes for your
cleaning,
journey.
nature. Welcome to Chats Along the Path. Thank you for joining us for this chat with Janice Nash. Janice is a holistic therapist specializing in helping people develop their self-care practice through a range of therapies, including Reiki, Reiki drum, meditation, journaling, and massage. And Janice is here to talk with us about the power of journaling. Janice, welcome. Thank you for joining us for Chats Along the Path.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Wonderful. Thank you. So Janice, please just let's start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll move into talking about your journaling practice.
So I am Janice. I'm 48, happily married with a wonderful 18-year-old son, 2 gorgeous cats. Had a bit of an epiphany over lockdown. So I reevaluated my life during that time and retrained and set up as a holistic therapist. And I've never been happier. I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This was my true calling in life, and everything else that happened up until that point was supposed to happen to lead me right here where I am.
Yes, beautiful, Janice. Thank you. And I am sure that through that process, journaling was a part of that process for you. So talk to us about your journaling practice. How did you start getting into journaling?
Gosh, I was young. So right from childhood, I've always journaled. If I felt happy, I'd go and grab a pen and a notebook and write down that I was happy and why I was happy. And if I was then sad, I'd do the same and explore why I was sad. And I've got a love of stationery. I've got different notebooks for different things. I love different pens and highlighters. So it was just a way for me to explore that, I think. But the time that I got heavily into journaling was in my early teens at school, and I was bullied. Horribly bullied, actually, in secondary school. And I retreated within myself and didn't really have any friends around me to help me cope. So I journaled. And oh my gosh, the amount of notebooks that I filled up was unreal. And it started off with just documenting what had happened, what they had done to me that day, and nobody spoke to me today, and Sharon, who was the leader, kept threatening to get me after school, things like that. So I was just writing down all the kind of occurrences, and then it started to just get bigger than that, and I would explore how that made me feel and what I was scared of. And I was then like, if this happens, then that could possibly happen, and just really explored all the different scenarios. And it massively helped me. I was a nervous wreck. This went on for a good 9 months at school before I was brave enough to tell someone that this is what was happening. And it massively impacted on my mental health and my confidence. But being able to journal and speak honestly to the paper and know that nobody else was going to read it was life-saving, I would say. It really helped me to get my head around it and to comfort myself, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. That's really powerful, Janice. And to have that as a helping hand during that challenging time. Being a kid is hard enough, and being bullied is awful. And so to have journaling as an outlet for you, to be able to tell the page about your experiences, I absolutely can imagine must have been very just really helpful for you. And hearing you talk about it, Janice, I had this feeling of, I wish I had done that when I was a kid and I was bullied and I was having challenges and I didn't have friends to sit with in the cafeteria lunchroom. Gosh darn it, I should have been journaling. So thank you, Janice, for that encouragement to my younger self. I appreciate that. But what I really love about this is that you started journaling. You've loved this ever since you were a little kid. You know, when you felt happy, you would grab a pen and paper and write down why you were happy. I think that is beautiful, Janice. Now, was there like something that triggered that for you, or was that just something that almost in a sense came out of nowhere?
Yeah, no, it just came out of nowhere. Just I remember my mum and dad had got me this really cool desk. Oh, I was so pleased with it, so pleased with it. And it lifted up and there was space inside to put my things, and I just would spend as much time at the desk as possible. And I must have been about 7 or 8 when they got me this, and I'd do all my colorings, and I remember making my dad a card and giving it to him, and he got so much joy out of it, and he put it up on the fridge and it stayed there for ever such a long time. And I think just, you know, I'd write the notes and things, and it always seemed to go down really well. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I just started, you know, today was a really good day, and I played out and this is what I did, and, you know, draw a little picture to go alongside it. So I just got joy from it, and it kind of brought joy to my family as well. And funnily, so I've always been somebody that would write notes. And my dad, he died 2 years ago, and journaling helped me with that. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But when we were going through his wallet, he had a note folded up in there that I'd written to him when I was 18. And it was literally, my darling dad, I've parked the car illegally. I've been out. I'm not getting up in time to move it. Here are the keys. Please, could you move the car for me at 8:30 so I don't get a ticket? Love you. You know, your loving daughter, Janice. Kiss, kiss, kiss. And he's kept it. I love that.
Yes, yes. Wow, Janice, you know, that really speaks to, I believe, the power of the written word. And, you know, here is your father keeping this just plain little simple note for years and years and years, and that is really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that story with us. So Janice, you used journaling as a way to help you cope with the challenges of growing up. Talk to us more about your journaling journey. So you used it in that regard. Tell us more about how you've used it throughout your experience, through your years, and yes, including with dealing with your grief.
So I carried on writing. After the bullying stopped, I got into a place where I was much happier at school, and then I started making friends again. So things were going quite nicely. And I just carried on my daily habit of just documenting the day. And then it started to kind of expand from there, where I was, without knowing, I was manifesting. I know that that's what I was doing now, but look, back then I didn't realize that I was doing. So I was writing about the things that I wanted to do, making plans how I would achieve them, and putting even like because I looked back, because I still have some of my very old journals here, because it's nice to look back on them sometimes. And just little things like, oh, you know, please let this come true for me, and, you know, little intentions and things like that. So things then started getting much better for me, and I started to just research a little bit about different types of journaling, because I knew that it was something that really worked for me. And that's when I came across gratitude journaling. So then I used to end every day with a gratitude list, and I still do that now. And I just write down things that I'm grateful for. Sometimes I'll just write down things that made me smile today. things that I'm truly grateful for. And if I've had a bad day, I will really look for what good happened today, because something always good happened. And I just think it's such an amazing way to bring gratitude into your life, which then brings love into your life, which raises your vibration and just improves your mental health, really. And I would say, if you don't do any form of journaling, just do a gratitude journal. You need to write 3 things in it every day. Everyone's got time to write 3 things down, and the people will notice the difference, because I certainly did.
Yes, that's great encouragement. I love that. So gratitude journaling, just writing down 3 things every day. It's as simple as that.
It really is.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful, Janice. I love it. So talk to us about your experience using journaling to deal with grief. Grief is, I believe, the most challenging thing that we experience as humans, the loss of our dear loved ones. And so can you please tell us about that experience?
Yeah. So my dad had been poorly for a number of years, and I kind of journaled on and off through that, just to explore my fears about his illness, and just to explore how I felt, and kind of just get it out and put it down on paper. And we were going into the very first lockdown. It looked imminent that we were going into the very first lockdown. So I was like, I'm going to make a COVID journal. I'm going to have a new notebook, and this is going to be my COVID journal of how I navigated my way through this awful time in the world and all the events. So I was like obsessed with writing all the numbers down, and how many people had it, how many cases and deaths, and I was really keeping this real big document. But my dad died early in the very first lockdown, so that journal then turned into my dealing with dad dying journal. So the week leading up to his death, he had been really poorly and really frightened by the whole COVID situation. So we decided that we were going to break the rules, and I was still going to go round, because I was helping mum to care for him, because he had early onset dementia. So he was very confused at times, and we had to make that decision. It was the right thing to do. So I was writing about how I felt about breaking the rules, and possibly that, the risk of taking COVID to my dad, but we had to, outweigh these things. So being able to write it down and really explore every avenue enabled me to see that actually that very much was the right thing to do. So then the day before he died, I had been writing about the fact that I knew that the time was coming, because he told me that he was done and he wasn't scared, and that he was ready to go, but he was worried about me. And I was like, no, it's not about me, this is about you. So we had that conversation. So I'd been writing about that, and then he died, and I was expecting it. He'd been under palliative care, but it knocked me sideways. He was he was my hero, my absolute everything, and my first loss. I've not lost anybody close, so that was hard to bear. So I kind of just retreated into myself. I didn't phone my friends to tell them that he'd died. I didn't want to speak to anybody. Luckily, we were in lockdown, so I didn't have to work, so I didn't have to worry about that. I withdrew from my husband, kind of went into overdrive with my mum. She needed me to be the one to prepare everything and do all the notifications. And my only real outlet where I felt safe and in control to start to deal with what I was feeling was in my journal. So I just did just stream of consciousness writing, where I just literally sat down. I didn't worry about my handwriting, my spelling, the punctuation. I just let it all flow. I didn't try to censor it. I just literally let everything that was bubbling around in my head and my heart just come out onto the page. And I look back on it now, and it was like, whoa, that was some deep stuff that I was going through. But I felt so much better for getting it out and being able to really explore some quite dark thoughts. and feelings, but it was very safe. It felt so safe because no one else is going to read this, and this is just between me and myself, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. I think that is one of the great things about journaling is that it is just you and there you are and talking to a blank page. And I think for some people that feels really daunting, at least
Mm.
at first. But once you get into it, you realize just how freeing it is. So that is really powerful, Janice. And Janice, did you notice as you were dealing with the loss of your beloved father and journaling on that? Did you notice any changes in the way in which you were approaching the journaling itself, the feelings that you were having? Did you notice any kind of a shift or just change in the way that it was working for you?
Yeah, I did actually. So I kind of was wandering around holding the journal all the time. And then I would have these random thoughts at really like odd times of the day that would just come up. And I was completely overwhelmed with my grief. So to try and manage the overwhelm, I knew that I needed to get it out of my head and onto the page. So I just literally would be carrying this notebook around with me everywhere. And then the thought would happen and I'd start scribbling away. And sometimes it would be, I would literally just write what the thoughts were. And then other times I would then go on to explore what I thought that meant or how it made me feel or how I could navigate it. And I started then consciously doing my morning pages again. Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, amazing. So I go through phases of doing morning pages, and it really helped me to function. So I would get up in the morning, and the first thing I would do is do my quick kind of meditation, and then I would sit and just write, and whatever came out of me at that time. I would do my 3 pages, close that journal, put it to one side, and then I felt like I could then go and have breakfast and get showered, because there was a good few weeks where I didn't wash properly after my dad died. My husband had to step in there. So I did my morning pages and then had my journal with me to write down all these different thoughts that were kind of coming into my head. And I'm a kind of person, I need to be in control. I don't necessarily need to control the situation around me because I know that that's not possible, but I do need to be in control of myself. And I didn't feel in control. And having the journal with me and being able to write in it really helped me to have that illusion of control, I think. Because the pages don't judge you, do they? They're non-judgmental. It's a blank page and I just fill it with my ramblings. But it massively helped. And I don't think I would have coped as well as I actually have done if it weren't for the journaling. I mean, also I use meditation and Reiki alongside that, but the journaling was a major, major part for me. And I look back on it now and I think initially I just thought I fell apart and didn't function at all. But I look back on it and I think, oh no, do you know what? I did really well. I actually did do really well. And that's because I prioritized my self-care, which is why it kind of springboarded me on to do the job that I'm doing now.
Yeah, wow, beautiful, Janice. I love that. And Janice, I know you explained it just a little bit, but for those who are listening who've never heard of Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, or Morning Pages, can you define that for our listeners?
Oh, so yeah, so she's amazing. So she is helping artists to just rediscover their creativity, and writing is creativity, isn't it? So she encourages you to get up before everybody else, so it's nice and kind of quiet, and you just sit down with your pen and your paper, and she asks you to write 3 pages of uncensored writing, just whatever comes up. And when I first tried it, I was a bit like, oh, I don't really know what to write. So I started off my very first morning pages with, Julia Cameron says this is a wonderful way to start your morning, but I don't know what to write about. And then honestly, it just was, and it just all started flowing. It's a brilliant way to start your day. I don't go back and read it straight away. I maybe go back a week or two later to go and read it. And it's actually very telling, very, very telling of where you are with your mental health, with your creativity, how you're feeling about your life. And you can kind of go back into it and look at it quite objectively and be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense then. And then you can start to put plans in place for yourself. But yeah, highly recommend it. I can't do it as a daily practice. But when I dip into it, I will do it for a couple of weeks solid. And then I dip out and then I go to a different kind of way of journaling.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you for explaining that. And yes, as anyone listening who has not yet been introduced to Julia Cameron's work, it is highly recommended because she's done great things, has beautiful books. So thank you, Janice, for bringing that up and that practice. So thank you. You know, one other thing that also really struck me to hear you talk about how you dealt with your grief through journaling was that you are carrying your journal with you all of the time. This is really incredible. And so as you were going about your day, was it there just tucked under your arm as you're doing your thing? Like, here I'm cooking and under one arm I have my journal. How did that work?
Yeah, like literally. So I'd get up in the morning, do my morning pages, pick up my notebook, and that would come with me. If I was sitting in the front room, it would sit on the side with me. If I went to the bathroom, that would come and sit on the side in there. Like, I honestly, there are some soggy pages where I was like, oh, in the bath, and this thought comes up. So I scribble that down. Yeah, if I was going to the kitchen to make food, it would come in there with me. If I went out for my daily allocated walks that the government said I could have, that would come out with me. I'd sit under a tree and write. Like, so, and that's stayed with me. And I literally have a notebook at all times with me now. So when I just, honestly, it's life changing. So do you know, you have an idea and you think to yourself, oh, I'll remember that. No, you're fooling yourself. You're not going to remember it. Write it down. So this is another form of journaling that I do, is I write notes to myself. So I have a download about something I could add into the business, or, oh, I've just seen a recipe on the TV that I think my son would like. I scribble that down and I go back over this at the end of the day or at the end of the week. I'll flick through, action everything that needs to be done, cross it off when it's all done. Like, I love it. I love a notebook. Like, journaling is my life.
I love it. I love it. Now, Janice, do you have different journals and notebooks for different things, or do you keep everything in one?
So I started out keeping everything in one, and that just didn't work for me. So I have different journals for different things. So I have my day-to-day thoughts on paper journal. I have a moon journal. So I work closely with the moon cycles. So every new moon and full moon, I sit down and journal specifically about that time. I have a scrapbook journal that I keep. So I have a vision board with all the things that I'm working on at the moment that I'm manifesting for. And when I've manifested it, it comes off of the vision board and into my scrapbook. So and then I write about how I feel about achieving it, which is amazing, actually. So actually, when I look back, this is a Yay Janice kind of journal, which I love. So yeah, journaling isn't always about just sitting down and writing. You can be really creative with it. You know, that you put some washi tape out and round things and, you know, getting your highlighters out. So yeah, I do that as well. I also have like my morning pages notebook. And then I also have a notebook for kind of like my business as well, when I want to sit and really have like a brainstorming session, just like a mind dump. I take everything out, put it onto the paper, and it just really enables me to kind of just keep track of everything. And then I have my gratitude journal, So I'm actually, right, I'm going to say it, I am actually designing my very own gratitude journal. If I tell you, then I have to finish it and get it out there at some point. And I talk to my clients all the time about this. It's just so simple, but they feel that they need some help with it. So just a few pointers. And then I have these are my thoughts journal if I just want to write about how I'm feeling. So yeah, my husband accepts my notebook dependency.
That's great, Janice. Now, Janice, do you keep all of your journals? And if so, if not, what do you do with them?
I keep some of them. And I can't even really describe to you how I decide which ones I keep. Just I know that some are for keeping and some aren't. They kind of serve their purpose while I'm writing, and then that's our journey done together. When I dispose of them, I take the covers off and I wait until a full moon, and then I just have a bonfire and just release it. And I see it as a real releasing my thoughts, my emotions, sometimes my very being, really. And I just release it all back out into the universe, and I just give thanks to the journal for its impact on my life.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's lovely. And then what do you do with the ones that you keep?
So they just stay in a box. I've got, and the box gets bigger and bigger every year. And then I just, every now and again, I'll go and review them. Sometimes I do so I had a moment, oh gosh, just before Christmas, I was doing a little bit of inner work. I was looking at some shadow work, and just the same thing kept coming up. My same limiting belief kept coming up. I felt that I'd gone back and dealt with, and it comes up in a different way. And then I need to go back. And it's always back to that little girl that was bullied. And I have kept my journal from around that time. So I dug them out and kind of read through that. And I've sent Reiki back to myself around that time. I've tried to work on forgiving myself for staying quiet for so long. And when I look back on it, I was so scared to tell anybody that I was being bullied in case it got worse. So I've just been sending lots of strength back to that. And actually, I feel like I've made a massive step forward with that. And that's been moved into the probably going to be going up in smoke pile, which feels like a massive achievement. I was 14 back then. I'm 48 now. So it's taken a while. But yeah, the journal has helped me, though, because it helps you to truly remember what I was going through. Because obviously, as time goes by, you remember things differently, or you put your own slant on it. I mean, obviously, it's your journal, so it's always going to be coming from your perspective. But I look back on it and I was like, I was so scared. And I forget that. The thing that's come with me from that was that I'm not good enough. I wasn't good enough to have friends, and I'm not nice enough, and those types of things. But when I look back on it, the emotion I was going through back in that time was just, I was fearful. I was just scared. So I've been coming at the situation from the wrong angle. So now that I've dealt with the fear and released that, it's really helped me to release that limiting belief that I'm not good enough, because I absolutely am good enough in every way, and I always have been. And that journaling has really helped me to kind of see that.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Thank you, Janice, for that. So, Janice, you've made a big transition in terms of your career. Can you talk to us about journaling's role in helping you to make that transition?
So before I actually kind of came to that decision, the idea came up in a morning pages session. So I was doing my morning pages. We were still in the lockdown, so I was running a really successful cleaning company, which I couldn't run anymore because we weren't allowed in people's houses. So I had a lot of time on my hands. So one day I'd been writing about that, and it was like, do you know what? I wanted to change jobs anyway at some point, because it's a really physical job. I was working 7 days a week. So then I was just like, well, then you've got to find something else to do. What are you good at? And then I just sat there for a little bit, and then just all these different things started coming down. And it was then, what do I enjoy doing? So journal, journal, journal. And so these are the things that I enjoy doing. These are the things that I'm good at doing. How can I make that into a business? Because I didn't want to go back and work for anybody else. And it kind of snowballed from there. So I then took it from the morning pages into a mind map with all the different, so there's lines coming off everywhere. You know, I like meditating. I'm really good at it. How can I make money? Can I teach people to meditate? Can I facilitate that for everybody else? And, you know, and it kind of all went from there. And then it all was just like, oh yeah, so I need to be a complementary therapist, clearly. And then just set about doing some training so that I could do that legally.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, you know, because it's great. Isn't it so true when we journal, for those of us who do journal, that ideas that we have at one point end up becoming a little fuller as time passes, and oh, that's right, you know, we mentioned that years ago while journaling. So yes, wonderful, Janice, thank you. Now, Janice, just a couple more questions for you. This is great inspiration to get journaling. I'm curious, do you have any special kind of, because when you were a kid, you know, you loved your pens and you loved your paper. Do you have any special kind of notebooks that you use, or pens, or is it just whatever you can grab works?
So yeah, so whenever I'm in the shops, if I see a pretty notebook, then I have to buy it. So for me, it's just about it being pretty, and then I just like a nice biro that I write with, but then I use highlighters as well. So I go in with different coloured highlighters, have a little colour coding system. Like, so some things are personal, some things are business. So when you've written like a chunk of writing, you can then go in and highlight the bits that relate to different things, so it's easier to decipher. But then I have special notebooks that I spend more money on. And there's an amazing lady on Instagram that I found, and she makes these notebooks that have like a dragon's face on the front. It's got a dragon's eye. It's absolutely stunning. And I've seen her work, and I was just like, I can't justify spending that money on a notebook. But I'm now going on a retreat to Glastonbury in a couple of months, and I'm going to really journal while I'm there, so it needs to be really special. So I am spending a lot of money on the special dragon notebook because I'm so drawn to it.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's exciting. I love it. Thank you.
Yes.
That's great. Blessings to your dragon journal. That's awesome. So Janice, for those who are considering getting into journaling, or maybe they've done a little bit of journaling, but they're curious about doing more, what tips do you have for people who might be interested in journaling?
So my first tip really is just don't overthink it. Just really don't. Just sit down and allow it to flow. Because if you try to like, sometimes you can sit and have an agenda and think, oh, I'd like to journal on how I'm feeling today about my job or whatever. But yeah, if you're a bit kind of like, oh, I don't know what to write about, just sit down and just think, you know, what happened today? What made me smile? Write about that, and then just see where that takes you. Just allow it to let you go. And yeah, don't get hung up on your handwriting. So I have really neat writing, but my journal's not so much, because everything's coming out so quickly. As long as you can read it back, that's fine. Punctuation, spelling, absolutely doesn't matter, because you're the only person that's going to see this. This is just you getting your thoughts out of your head and onto paper. So yeah, don't overthink it, and just make it enjoyable. So sometimes, like, so as much as I journal every day, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm so tired, or I can't be bothered today. So I make it a ritual. Those are the times that I get my candles and some crystals, and I'll get some essential oils to smell nice, and I'll make it a real event. Oh, I'm going to really enjoy sitting down with my little sacred space and just writing, and just make it really special, whatever you want to have there, whatever resonates with you. And I just find that works really well. And then if you're really stuck, you can use journal prompts. So I have, I've got a folder of like hundreds and hundreds of journal prompts that I've made over the years. So sometimes if I'm thinking, I want to sit and journal, haven't really got an agenda today, don't know what to do, I'll literally just go flip open the folder, and whatever page I'm on, I'll go, there you go, and I'll pick that journal prompt and I'll write about that. And then it often then just snowballs, and then you kind of discover something new about yourself.
Yes, I love that, Janice. That is all wonderful encouragement. So, Janice, we could talk about journaling all day. This has been a great conversation, so thank you so very much. But before we say goodbye, I'd love to know, is there anything else that you would like to say about journaling? Anything else that you would like to add? And where can people get in touch with you if they'd love to continue the conversation with you?
So, in my humble opinion, everybody needs journaling in their life, because you get to know yourself, and you have to know yourself because you're the most important person in your life. And once you get to know yourself and you understand yourself, your life becomes so much easier to navigate. Honestly, it really does. So yeah, that's what I would say to people. That's one of the main benefits of journaling. You get that clarity, that connection to yourself, which is absolutely amazing. So I do talk to my clients extensively about journaling, and some of my regular clients are a bit like, yes, we know, go and journal on it. Get a notepad, write it down, explore your thoughts. So yeah, that kind of is always my go-to. So I have a Facebook page, which is Mind How You Go. You is with a U, not a Y-O-U. And then I also have a private group on Facebook called Aligned, Balanced and Calm, which is a sanctuary for self-care. And within that, I just share tips on all different types of self-care. I go in there and do meditations. I do journal prompts every new moon and every full moon. And then people just have then access to me via my inbox, and happy to answer any questions. As you could have noticed, I could talk all day about journaling.
Wonderful, Janice. Thank you. Yes. And I have greatly enjoyed hearing you talk about journaling. So thank you so much. All of those links are available in the notes, so people can click on them and go to your Facebook page, your group, and learn more about what you do. So Janice, thank you so very much for this beautiful conversation on journaling. I send blessings and best wishes to your journaling. And to everyone listening, I want to say thank you all so very much for joining us for this chat along the path, sending you blessings and best wishes for your journey.
Gratitude. Thanks for tuning in to this chat along the path. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for walking the path.
Cleaning,
Blessings and best wishes
walking,
for your journey.
journaling, ritual, silence.